So today I'm going to make a little garden trowel. So I'm going to do one with a flat blade and it's quite wide, and I believe that this is a Dutch style of trowel. I didn't know that there were different styles, but anyway, this is a Dutch style. I'm going to make it from two pieces and then do a little ash handle on it. So let's just get straight into it. So that's what we're roughly going for. I'll cut it out now with an angle grinder. I refined the profile a bit more after cutting it out, and I've ground a little bevel just on the front edge so it'll go in the soil a bit easier. It doesn't want to be sharp, but I think just a little bit of a bevel will make it easier to, well, I suppose, cut into the soil, dig into the soil. I'll put it in the forge so we can heat it up just to like an orange and basically take the mill scale off. So that means that the finish on this piece is a forged finish, and it will match the sort of the handle piece that we're going to make and rivet onto it. I'll just hammer the surface as well to give it a little bit of a patina or texture, just to add to the forged look. Moving on to the handle, I'll start by putting a short, steep taper on the end of the bar, which we can then isolate off and draw down a section just behind it into a nice taper, like you would a leaf. And then we can spread that isolated material, so we can put two rivets through it to hold the blade piece onto the handle. As I'm spreading the material on the end, I want to move material in the cheeks, but leave a lot of mass in the centre, which will give it more strength, so it's less likely to bend when being used. A bit more bend into this piece, and I think I've got to do it at the vise. It's with a pair of forks. Camera's too close. I'll come to the back of this piece now and just use some bars to create an isolation, which is going to be a shoulder where the handle, the wooden handle that we're going to make, will butt up onto it. We'll have to file it to square and perfect after, but this just gets it roughed in. And then obviously we need to forge the tang as well at the back. Really, a guillotine tool would be much better to forge this isolation, but I haven't got one. I really need to make one. Maybe I'll do that in another video. I'll clean up that shoulder a little bit and then draw some material back to the tang. However, before we forge the tang to a final shape, I'll rivet on the other piece just so it's a little bit easier to get on whilst it's still attached to this handlebar. You can see that isolation there. We are going to have to clean the shoulder up a little bit and then obviously forge the rest of the tang out. I've centre punched 2 marks which I'll drill to 6mm, as we'll use the 6mm bar to rivet this piece onto the blade piece, which I also need to drill some holes in. But I'll do that off camera as it's pretty boring. I've drilled 2 holes in that piece and 1 hole in the blade so that we can get that set before we try and drill the second hole, as we can then drill that hole with the piece already together so we know that that hole is definitely in the right place. Anyway, 2 little 6mm rivets and I'll heat them up, as if you do this cold they can crack on the edges and then it looks really bad, so if we do it hot they don't crack basically, so it looks a lot better. Over the edge here so that I don't mess up that central vein that we've got going on there, because if I just do it there I'll flatten it, so I'm coming to the side to make sure I'm not ruining that. To make the handle, I've got this log. It's a piece of ash, I think. And, you know, ash is a good wood for handles. It's nice and hard and tough. So I'll shape this up. I've got an axe and a knife, so I can whittle it down, chop it up into a actual, well, first I'll split it up into a bit of wood that we can actually make this handle from. I've put this block underneath so I don't go straight through and hit my anvil, which will ruin the axe and the anvil itself. So I'll begin to put just a bit of a taper onto the actual handle. Obviously it's not going to be this long, I'm going to cut it back here, but I'll begin to taper it as I've got a bit of a handle for my actual hands so I don't chop them off. So the handle's very rough. I'll take a knife to it and just smooth it all out. Obviously we need to do more shaping on the back here, but I'll wait until I've cut it off to shape the rest of that. I'll neaten all this up with a knife. I've got a hacksaw I know it's not the best thing to use on wood, but I'll cut it off this main handle piece and also just trim the ends as it's not quite square. It's very rough at the moment. I'll just skim over the surface with an angle grinder to take down the high spots so it's all nice and even, and then we can go over it with some sandpaper, just like 120 by hand, maybe 180 as well after that, and get it nice and smooth. The angle grinder leaves this almost burnt finish on the wood. Just must be caused by friction or whatever, I don't know. But it's actually quite useful because it reveals where the high and low spots are, so you can then go back over those with the grinder to remove that material. But obviously we want this to be white, so I've got a bit of sandpaper, 120 grit, and I'll just rub over all of this, revealing a nice white piece of ash. Before I deal with this end, I'm actually going to put it onto the trowel so I can then sand that up with the trowel clamped in the vise. So it should be a bit easier to get that nice and smooth sphere, half sphere on the end of the handle. It would obviously be easier if I did this on a lathe, because then it's all nice and round and perfect, but I don't have a lathe, so I'll do it by hand. I've also put a 6mm hole in the end, and so to fit this onto the trowel, I'll heat the tang up to sort of like a dull red, and then we can actually just burn it on, so we get a perfect fit up between the two. It's just the quickest way to do it rather than trying to faff around filing that or getting that hole to square to then put the tang in. It's just much quicker to burn it on and then take it out, let it all cool down, and epoxy the handle up. Finished. You can see it's got a nice darkened look to it, and that's because of that oil finish on it. This fits into the handle with the literally last couple of mil there that we just have to hammer on. Check that it fits up nicely. Unfortunately, this is all the epoxy that I have left, so I think I have enough. Give that a mix. Tap the handle on. I'll get a rag, wipe away that excess, and then just leave it to dry. And obviously you then have to finish the end of the handle, oil that up, then it's done. as the trowel is made from mild steel, it's not going to be the strongest material out there. Maybe these should be made from a medium carbon steel. I'm not really too sure. I think quenching it does make a little difference to the hardness and toughness of the material, but not very much. So really, it probably should be made of a medium carbon steel. So after use, it does need to be oiled, as it is only mild steel. It's not stainless steel. So if it isn't, if the finish isn't kept up, it will just rust and corrode away. But I enjoyed making these. I've done quite a few of them now. I find them fun, and I think, you know, you can make a trowel out of one piece, of course, and it's probably stronger out of one piece. But I quite like the design and the way that the rivets come in. And I mean, I like rivets. You know, rivets are better than welding, and in a way, I think it looks better than making it out of one piece. But maybe it's weaker out of two pieces. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you on the next one.